Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Matt, and today I wanted to do a little experiment on how gypsum and calcium chloride can make an impact on your beer. I got an idea from a brewing podcast that I was listening to about an experiment you could do post-fermentation to see the impacts of calcium chloride and gypsum on your beer. You can make adjustments to your beer post-fermentation. Also, in doing research on this video, I was on YouTube to see if anyone else has done this, and it looks like a channel called Brew Dudes has also done this experiment. So I just wanted to give them a shout out, and I used kind of their video as more inspiration to make this video myself, as I thought it would be an interesting topic to talk about on my channel. It's common knowledge that gypsum and calcium chloride will make a measurable impact on your beer, but I've never actually tasted a side-by-side comparison of a control sample, a sample with 200 parts per million of chloride, and a sample with 200 parts per million of sulfate to really see and experience the differences that these brewing salts can make. If you're unfamiliar with brewing salts, sulfates or gypsum will typically make a beer perceived to be more bitter, and it will also make it a little bit drier as well, while chloride will make a beer a little bit sweeter, and you'll have a more rounded mouthfeel. After we're done trying all the samples and comparing them side by side, I also want to do a blind taste test to see, to remove any bias I have for the experiment, to see if I can really taste the difference between these three samples. If you want to do this experiment at home, I'll give you the exact measurements of everything you'll need so you can do this at home. The first, as far as equipment, you'll need a pretty accurate scale. And then you'll also need some sort of way to measure out milliliters. I'm using this oversized syringe for measurements. For your beer sample, you're gonna typically want to use like a pale ale or something along those lines, where it's not like a double IPA or a stout. You kind of want to do something a little bit easier on the palate. That way you can hopefully tell the differences a little bit easier with the chlorides and sulfates you're gonna add. I have here a pale ale, and also with the beer you want to make sure that you're not using anything that has already been adjusted with brewing salts. That way you can get a really clear example of what these two brewing salts would do to the samples. These were all made with RO water with no additional brewing salts added. For the gypsum and calcium chloride samples, you're going to measure out 50 milliliters of water in each of these glasses. And then for the calcium chloride, you're going to measure out 0.52 grams and add it into one sample. And then you're going to measure out 0.45 grams of gypsum and then add it to the other one. You'll notice that the gypsum sample won't actually dissolve all the way. The gypsum will just kind of settle to the bottom. And that's because it's so dense in there and it won't dissolve, where the chlorides will dissolve pretty quickly. So when you're doing this experiment, whenever you're going to move the sample around, just make sure to stir the sample to make sure the gypsum is suspended in the liquid. As far as measurements are concerned, if you want 100 parts per million, you're going to add 2 milliliters of the sample. And if you want 200 parts per million, then you're going to need to add 4 milliliters to each sample. Okay, so we can go ahead and get these samples all set up. I got my measurement here, so I'm going to measure out 4 milliliters of calcium chloride. And add that to the sample. And then I'm also going to kind of stir up the gypsum sample, as like I said in the earlier part of the video, that the gypsum does like to settle down to the bottom of the glass, so you want to just kind of make sure that you stir that up so you can get enough in the syringe. Again, I'm measuring out 4 milliliters of gypsum as well and adding it to the sample. Okay. So we can go ahead and try these to see if there is what should be a difference. So this is the control sample where nothing has been done to this sample. Okay, and then this is the chloride sample. I want to try the control one more time. It's very hard to tell these two beers apart. The sweetness isn't really coming through like it should. I can say the mouthfeel is maybe a little bit different, but it's not really too noticeable. I might have a hard time distinguishing these two apart when doing the blind taste test, but we'll give it a try. Last, I want to try the sulfate sample. Okay, so the sulfates made a measurable impact on the sample, I think. It's the first thing you notice is it's just very dry. And as far as bitterness is concerned, you can probably say it perceives to be a little bit more bitter, but it's definitely drier. That's easy to distinguish, so I don't think I'm gonna have a hard time figuring out that sample. So to wrap this video up, I kind of want to do a blind taste test to see, without any bias, to see if I can actually tell the difference between these samples. I did kind of drink them down to the same level, that way I can't tell when they're all mixed up which beer is which. But like I said, the normal should taste like nothing has been done, the sulfate should taste a little dry, and then the chlorides, I'm kind of looking for a mouthfeel difference, so we'll go ahead and mix these up. I'm not going to make any cuts in the video just because I want to make sure that you guys don't think I'm cheating or anything. But I'm just going to mix these up a little bit. I can already tell you, I don't know which one is which. We're going to make one more swap. One more like this. Okay. Alright, so we got 3 samples here, and let's see if we can tell them apart here. This is probably going to be difficult. Okay, so I got my first sample here. Okay, that has a really good mouthfeel to it. I'm going to say that's normal or chloride. Okay, that tastes a little dry, but I want to try this last sample out. I think this is the gypsum sample. And then these two, I want to try this one more time just to make sure. I'm fairly confident that's the gypsum sample. It tastes a little bit more dry compared to these two. So let's try to figure out which one is the chloride. And really, like, what I'm looking for is a mouthfeel difference. Okay. It's really hard to tell the difference between these two. God, whenever I take this first sample, I was like, oh, this is definitely the chloride sample, and then I try this one, and it kind of tastes the same. I'm gonna say, I think this one is probably the chloride sample, and then this is the normal one. So we'll see how this goes. So this is the set this is the one I thought was normal, and it is normal. So this is the normal sample, which is good, which means I'm probably right on the other two, but we'll see. This one should be the sulfate sample, and it is the sulfate sample. And this one is the chloride sample. So I got 3 for 3, which is great. I honestly didn't think I would, but it's really hard to tell the difference between the chloride and the normal sample. It might just be maybe if I brewed a sweeter beer, maybe. You could probably tell the difference between them a little bit easier. But for a pale ale, it's definitely hard to tell the difference between the chloride and the normal samples. But that about wraps it up. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and there'll be more content coming soon, so thanks for watching.